But the old country is no longer Austria. So our first stop on our search for Felizienthal took us not to Vienna, but to Kiev, capital of Ukraine. A large industrial city, Kiev sprawls on either side of the Dnieper River, which from 1919 to 1943 formed the border between communist East Ukraine and the democratic West Ukraine. Although all of Ukraine was communist from 1943 to 1991, in many ways these two parts of the country have very different histories. Today you see evidence of the old regime in the statues and monuments and in the crumbling utilitarian infrastructure. Since liberation in 1991, there has been very little reinvestment in streetcars and roads, for example. And the contrast between Kiev's 19th century heritage and communism's hierarchy of function over form is readily apparent.
Ой, ты песня, песенка девичья, ты лети за ясным солнцем свет, и бойцу на дальнем пограничье от Катюши передай привет.
There are also key linguistic differences among Ukrainians. In Kiev, most people speak Russian, whereas in the West, especially in the Lviv area, people are proud to speak Ukrainian. We were not aware of the language issue when we hired a car and driver at the Kiev airport for the 8-hour drive to Lviv. As it happens, Sergei, our driver, spoke Russian. To help pass the time on the drive, we asked him to teach us a few words. Little did we know that we would raise eyebrows later on when the few words we had learned came out of our mouths in Russian. Fortunately, dobre, which means good, is common to both languages, and that would serve us quite well. However, dobre utro, or good morning in Russian, would get us no more than a curt nod in Lviv, whereas dobre day elicited a smile and a pleasant dobre day in return. Of course, having lived among Ukrainians in Saskatchewan and Alberta, I knew a couple of words before I left, but on this trip, I wanted to rediscover Ukrainians on their home turf. Because back in Saskatchewan when I was growing up, Ukrainians were them, and Austrian Germans were us. However, during our short visit to Ukraine, I discovered that, to a very large extent, them is us. For one thing, as we sped along the road to Lviv, the countryside looked just like our prairie provinces. Although I knew that 80% of Ukraine is arable land, I had not expected it to look so similar. The wide open spaces and large fields could have been anywhere from Winnipeg to Red Deer. The roads, however, are another matter. Although this 4-lane between Kiev and Lviv is quite good overall, Ukrainian roads are among the worst in the world, with drivers punishing their vehicles mercilessly. Speed limits are low, usually 60 kilometers per hour, which means ready cash for the police, who are happy to collect fines from you in cash, as they did from Sergei, who negotiated a $10 fine with this officer, who's just visible in the highlighted portion of this photo. Reminders of the communist era are common. As we neared Lviv, we stopped to admire one of many large sculptures put up by the former regime. This one is apparently titled Spirit of the Revolution. We arrived in Lviv late in the evening and checked into the Hotel Dniester. And we awoke to find ourselves overlooking a beautiful park just across from our hotel. We arranged to meet our guide here at the Dniester.
Добрий день, вітаємо вас на Україні.
Oksana Zachary is the sister to Roman Zachary, my Ukrainian internet contact. Roman is a graduate student currently studying in Norway, so he asked his sister to help us out. She was a delight, and we would have been quite lost without her. We couldn't have picked a better time to see Lviv than during the celebrations of its 747th birthday. With the streets teeming with people, we were able to walk freely and enjoy the striking architecture. What is it in Ukrainian?
Проспект Свободи.
Ah, okay. Freedom Street. Prairie scenes aside, when you look at this church dating from the 13th century, you know you're not in Canada. However, the architecture of the university and public buildings, such as the Opera House, are more than a little reminiscent of Austria rather than Ukraine. The architecture of the Grand Hotel clearly reflects Austrian architecture, which is not surprising. The Grand is famous for its cuisine, so we stayed for dinner. Here and throughout our stay in the Lviv area, it became increasingly clear that, Austrian or Ukrainian, the food we ate as children in Canada looks, tastes, and is exactly like the food we were eating here. At the Grand, I enjoyed mushroom and potato-filled pierogies with sour cream that were so good I nearly wept. Mary ordered potato pancakes with mushroom sauce that would have fooled my own father if I told him my mother made them. Although the Grand Hotel represents the finest dining in the area, the food was outstanding everywhere we ate. Borscht, just like home, can be had anywhere, as can pierogies, which you have to order as vareniki. Poppy seed cake is common and delicious. Back at the Dniester, we're about to settle in for the daily breakfast buffet, which is included in the price of the room. Breakfast. The decor is perhaps a tad over the top, but the food is quite excellent.
A sweet apple-filled crepe, a deviled egg, some fruit, and is that honey you have in that little container?
Yeah.
Honey.
And black currant jam.
Black currant jam and juice. All this comes complete with your room.
We all know how hard my our grandfather Maximilian Lang, worked to develop his own strain of apple, the Saskatchewan apple, a Lang apple. He was very big on fruit. Most of the family was. In fact, I can recall from when I'm young, whenever the fruit came in, that was a big deal. Well, it is here too. And there's all kinds of fruit. Behind me, the apple trees that are blooming everywhere. There are plum trees in bloom and pears in bloom. Oksana organized another car and driver for us, and we bid farewell to Lviv and continued our trek to Felizienthal. Our new driver, Wova, is from Berezhan, Oksana's hometown, about an hour from Lviv. We were headed for a bed and breakfast in Truskavets, which is about halfway to our ultimate destination, as we were told there would be no accommodation beyond that point. The countryside becomes more rolling as we approach Truskavets and nearer to the Carpathian Mountains. Truskavets is not unlike Banff in Canada, and it's famous for its mineral hot springs. People come here from far and wide to take the waters, hoping for healthful benefits. We decided to come to Truskavets, which is about an hour outside of Lviv, because we don't think there are going to be any hotels down near Skole or Dolonivka. So through our translator and friends, we found this place, which is brand new, only 1 year old, and it is $50 US per night, which is about $75 Canadian, and for another $10 you get 3 meals. We've had some and they're excellent, and this is what it's like. Over here we have all the papers for all the research that I'm bringing, and if you come in, I'll show you more. In some ways it's typical, in some ways it's not. This is a very nice room. It comes with a fridge. We haven't figured out how to plug it in. As you can see, we're set up for production here. This is cameras and lots of equipment. Still not a professional crew. Please understand, my wife Mary is not a cinematographer, and nor am I. So it's more like home video. 2 single beds. In Europe, and certainly in Ukraine, you always get 2 single beds. If you're married, 2 single beds, the way it is. Mostly in Ukraine, you can't drink the water. It's quite funny. We asked somebody, how is the water where you live? And they said, oh, it's fine. I said, can you drink it? They said, oh, sure. You have to boil it first, but you buy your water. And here in Truskavets, it's very famous for its mineral waters, which tastes a lot like petroleum, but apparently does the liver a lot of good. This is a bathroom, and over on this side, something that is unique that we really need to import to North America, a great idea. You run a hot water pipe through your wall, this stays warm, you dry your towels, keeps the bathroom warm. We're off soon to go and find our way to Skole and what we hope will be Felizienthal.